Madame Duvernoy is not behaving well. This woman, who thought she could get more money out of Marguerite, at whose expense she was living almost completely, has contracted liabilities which she cannot meet, and seeing that her neighbor is no longer of use to her, she does not even come to see her. Everybody is abandoning her. Monsieur de G., prosecuted for his debts, has had to return to London. On leaving, he sent us more money. He has done all he could, but they have returned to seize the things, and the creditors are only waiting for her to die in order to sell everything. I wanted to use my last resources to put a stop to it, but the bailiff told me it was no use, and that there are other seizures to follow. Since she must die, it is better to let everything go than to save it for her family, whom she has never cared to see, and who have never cared for her. You cannot conceive in the midst of what gilded misery the poor thing is dying. Yesterday we had absolutely no money. Plate, jewels, shawls, everything is in pawn. The rest is sold or seized. Marguerite is still conscious of what goes on around her, and she suffers in body, mind, and heart. Big tears trickle down her cheeks, so thin and pale that you would never recognize the face of her whom you love so much, if you could see her. She has made me promise to write to you when she can no longer write, and I write before her. She turns her eyes toward me, but she no longer sees me. Her eyes are already veiled by the coming of death, yet she smiles, and all her thoughts, all her soul are yours, I am sure. Every time the door opens her eyes brighten, and she thinks you are going to come in. Then, when she sees that it is not you, her face resumes its sorrowful expression. A cold sweat breaks out over it, and her cheekbones flush. February 19, midnight. What a sad day we have had today, poor Monsieur Armand. This morning Marguerite was stifling. The doctor bled her, and her voice has returned to her a while. The doctor begged her to see a priest. She said yes, and he went himself to fetch an abbe from Saint Roch. Meanwhile Marguerite called me up to her bed, asked me to open a cupboard, and pointed out a cap and a long chemise covered with lace, and said in a feeble voice: "I shall die as soon as I have confessed. Then you will dress me in these things. It is the whim of a dying woman." Then she embraced me with tears and added: "I can speak, but I am stifled when I speak. I am stifling. Air." I burst into tears, opened the window, and a few minutes afterward the priest entered. I went up to him. When he knew where he was, he seemed afraid of being badly received. "Come in boldly, father," I said to him. He stayed a very short time in the room, and when he came out he said to me: "She lived a sinner, and she will die a Christian." A few minutes afterward he returned with a choir boy bearing a crucifix, and a sacristan who went before them ringing the bell to announce that God was coming to the dying one. They went all three into the bedroom, where so many strange words had been said, but was now a sort of holy tabernacle. I fell on my knees. I do not know how long the impression of what I saw will last, but I do not think that, till my turn comes, any human thing can make so deep an impression on me. The priest anointed with holy oil the feet and hands and forehead of the dying woman, repeated a short prayer, and Marguerite was ready to set out for the heaven to which I doubt not she will go, if God has seen the ordeal of her life and the sanctity of her death. Since then she has not said a word or made a movement. 20 times I should have thought her dead if I had not heard her breathing painfully. February 20, 5 p.m. All is over. Marguerite fell into her last agony about 2 o'clock. Never did a martyr suffer such torture, to judge by the cries she uttered. 2 or 3 times she sat upright in the bed, as if she would hold on to her life, which was escaping toward God. 2 or 3 times, also, she said your name. Then all was silent, and she fell back on the bed, exhausted. Silent tears flowed from her eyes, and she was dead. Then I went up to her. I called her, and as she did not answer, I closed her eyes and kissed her on the forehead. Poor, dear Marguerite, I wish I were a holy woman, that my kiss might recommend you to God. Then I dressed her as she had asked me to do. I went to find a priest at Saint Roch. I burned 2 candles for her, and I prayed in the church for an hour. I gave the money she left to the poor. I do not know much about religion, but I think that God will know that my tears were genuine, my prayers fervent, my almsgiving sincere, and that he will have pity on her, who, dying young and beautiful, has only had me to close her eyes and put her in her shroud. February 22. The burial took place today. Many of Marguerite's friends came to the church. Some of them wept with sincerity. When the funeral started on the way to Montmartre, only 2 men followed it. The Comte de G., who came from London on purpose, and the Duke, who was supported by 2 footmen. I write you these details from her house, in the midst of my tears, and under the lamp which burns sadly beside a dinner which I cannot touch, as you can imagine, but which Nanine has got for me, for I have eaten nothing for 24 hours. My life cannot retain these sad impressions for so long, for my life is not my own any more than Marguerite's was hers. That is why I give you all these details on the very spot where they occurred, in the fear, if a long time elapsed between them and your return, that I might not be able to give them to you with all their melancholy exactitude. End of Chapter 26.